Hi, Blake Matthews here from Florida Orienteering with another short video about the Livelox app. This is going to be a troubleshooting video for Livelox. I already have a video out there for the setup, a basic setup for Livelox. It shows you how to install the app on your phone and set up an account on the website and link the two to make the app work for you for recording runs when you're doing orienteering. But over the years, I've started encountering more and more people who have had problems getting the app to work for them. And the basic reason for this is that we haven't had an update to the Livelox mobile app in about 5 years. And operating systems have started to, as they get more advanced, do some things under the covers that don't work so well with this old release of Livelox. And the good news is that problem should go away in the not distant future. We're expecting a new release of the Livelox mobile app sometime in early to mid 2020, which means it'll probably come out right about the time our orienteering season in Florida is coming to an end for this year. But the good news is that toward the end of this season or beginning of next season, we should have a new version of Livelox that'll be more up to date with current operating system technology. And when we get that, chances are the solution will go back to being more of a good turnkey solution where you don't have to do any tweaking or fiddling with settings or anything like that to get it to work. But for right now, I have encountered maybe 10%, 15% of people who try to install it and get it to work on a new phone with a newer operating system are having issues getting it to work. And the basic form that those problems take usually is somebody will get it set up and go to record a track, and either the track will record for a few seconds or maybe a couple of minutes and then just shut off completely, leaving you with basically a little stub of a track recorded, or it'll record the correct amount of time. Like if you run for an hour, it'll say it recorded for an hour, but it'll only show like a tiny amount of distance covered because it isn't recording actually where you went, just how long it was running. Again, you get a stub of a track that doesn't show where you really went. And then finally, a third possibility, which is what happens on my phone, is that it will record the correct amount of time, but the GPS goes into this kind of power save mode where it drops a breadcrumb only once every 10 minutes instead of once every second the way it's supposed to. And so when you play it back, it kind of looks like it recorded something, but when you play it back, you can watch your avatar kind of jumps straight from one point to another point to another point and then comes back home. And you basically also get a useless track. You can't see where you really went. So if any of those scenarios is what's happening to your phone, this video is for you. And I'm going to show you what to check on your phone and what to change in order to get it to work for you. And some of these things are workarounds. Some of them are kind of kludgy, but they do make the app work for now. And then, like I said, in a few months or a short period of time, we're expecting a new release that'll kind of make these problems go away. So to get started, the first thing you want to check just to make sure is that you have the correct permission settings for the Livelox app. So if I go to my settings and search for Livelox, I want to get to my app settings for Livelox, and obviously I'm doing this on Android. My particular phone is a Galaxy S9. I'm running the latest release of Android Pie on here, but there will be corresponding settings on iOS products, iOS operating system for Apple products. You want to get to your app settings for Livelox, and if you scroll down in here, you'll see a setting for permissions. And if you go in there, this is basically what you'll see. It wants permission for three things: your location, that's your GPS chip; phone for access to the cellular network so it can upload your track at the end; and storage so that it can record while you're out in the woods. Obviously, it needs all three of those things. Every one of them should be turned on. And in theory, it should have asked for all of this when you first installed the Livelox app. You should have been prompted to give these three permissions. So chances are this is correctly set up on your phone. However, there are instances where somebody sets like a privacy setting on their phone, like a blanket privacy setting, when they're not in Livelox and not thinking about this. And one of the consequences of the privacy setting is that it goes in and starts tweaking with when it can know your location, and that can turn the location services off in apps without you realizing it. So it's worthwhile to come in here and just check these three things and make sure they're still all turned on. So that's the first thing to try. Just check the permissions. But if you don't have that, the next thing to start looking at is power. Basically, the core problem in all of these instances is power. Everybody wants to say they've got the greatest battery capacity and their phone lasts the longest time on battery. And basically the way operating systems are doing that is to become more and more aggressive about saving power, like optimizing power every chance they get. And that amounts to basically anytime it thinks you're not using something, it switches it off so that it stops consuming power. And unfortunately, the GPS chip is one of those components in your phone that does tend to draw a little bit of juice from the battery. And so these operating system settings and the power optimization routines kind of target the GPS and to switch it off anytime that they think that you're not actively looking at it. And so what happens is when you start up the Livelox app and you start it recording, and as long as you keep looking at it, everything works great. But if you turn the screen off, or the screen times out, or you minimize Livelox and bring up another app, give another app focus so that Livelox goes into the background, it says, aha, you're not looking at that anymore. I can switch that GPS chip off and save some power. And that's what makes your recording go south. So basically what we want to do is go through the power settings on the phone and make sure that Livelox is not set to have its power optimized in such a way that it'll end up turning the chip off on you without you realizing it. So you're going to come into your settings and you're going to look for power. And in Android Pie, it's called power mode. One of the things is called power mode. This is kind of the blanket power mode setting for the entire phone. And you can see there's 4 settings here. The default, I guess, is optimized. That's what my phone was set to when I first came in here. And you can try setting it up to high performance or something of that nature, putting it up a level or two higher than the default, and see if that helps you. That's the first thing you can try. Now, this is kind of a shotgun approach. It'll change the power optimization for your entire device as opposed to just for Livelox. So this is kind of the bazooka to kill the fly thing. You'd prefer not to change this if you can, but it's one thing you can attempt if what I'm about to show you now doesn't work. That's where the kind of blanket setting is. But ideally what we'd like to do is turn off power optimization just for Livelox. And that setting is the blanket one for the whole phone, but there's also ones for individual apps. And if you go in here and search for optimize, there should be an optimized battery usage setting. And then at the very top of that, it says optimize battery usage. You take that one. And this is where it goes app by app. In iOS, I think this is under app settings. I don't have an iOS device that has a modern operating system in it, but I think that's where it is. But you can look around and find it. It has a corresponding setting. So I'm going to look at all apps here. And if I scroll down to Livelox, it's a bunch of apps on this phone, so I have a little bit of scrolling to do. Livelox, there we are. And you can see that it's turned on, right? That setting is turned on here. And I want to switch that off. I want Livelox to have no power optimization. So I just turn that off like that. Now, in theory, it won't do the power optimization for that app, but only for that app. The power optimization can still take place everywhere else that you'd like it to. So that's the next setting to try, is to go through the optimization like that. Now, the bad news is, for me, that didn't work either. I tried changing that setting. I tried tweaking settings for the GPS and location services and other things. I tried all different kinds of combinations of settings. None of it worked for me. In the end, I still got the same symptom where if I started Livelox, it would work great as long as I was looking at it, as long as the screen was on and Livelox was on the screen. But as soon as any of that changed, the screen turned off or timed out or whatever, the recording went south. So if you're like me, if you have one of these operating systems that really doesn't play nice, there's another workaround that you can use It's kind of a kludge. It's inconvenient, but it does work. And what it amounts to is you got to make sure that Livelox stays on and shows on the screen the entire time you're recording. As long as it's up front and on the screen, it records just fine. And to do that, you want to make sure that the screen stays on. So if I go into settings, look at display, somewhere down here, there should be an item that says screen timeout. This is the interval that it takes for your screen to time out on its own and shut off if you stop messing with the phone. And here you see the second problem. There used to be a setting on here for never, right? And there were 15 seconds, 30 seconds, 1 minute. At the bottom of that list, there used to be one that said never turn off. Well, they took that away too because, again, they're trying to optimize power. They want to save your battery. So they took that setting away. Now it times out after 10 minutes. That's the longest you can set. Don't know if this is the case in iOS or not, but it's definitely the case in Android. So you can't fix that by just going to the operating system screen timeout and turning it off. So you have to go a little bit farther and use an app. And there are a few apps out there that do this. The one I use is the one second from the left on the top there called Stay Awake. There's also another one out there called Caffeine. It's kind of silly but aptly named. And there are probably others out there that do this. The sole function of that app is if you go into it, it just has an activate button or a turn on button or whatever. You press it, and then from that point on, unless you shut the screen off manually, it will stay on. It won't turn off. So you get that app on your phone, you turn it on, and then probably it's a good idea because that'll drain battery, right? Keeping the screen on will drain your battery. Probably a good idea right before you start your Livelox recording to go into your display settings, turn the brightness down, dial it down to where you can barely see it. That'll consume less battery power when you're out there. And then I'm going to turn it back on here just so you can see everything. But turn that down so that you're draining less battery, and then go into Livelox and start your recording, right? Now you'll notice that when I bring this up, I can tell that the location services are on because it says right there in the middle of the screen, GPS status ready, accuracy 3 meters. So I know that the GPS is on. If your GPS, for whatever reason, is turning off intermittently or you don't have permissions set for it to have it, you'll see like GPS status disabled or something of that nature there. That's one thing you can check readily in Livelox just to make sure it's working. But anyway, if I do this now, if I have this set up, I have the stay awake turned on so the screen won't turn off, I can actually test this by starting a recording. You don't have to be in an event to try this. You can just press record, let it start doing its thing. You can see the timer starts running. And then take your phone for a walk around the block and then turn it off, stop the recording. And then after that, I guess it won't show here on this one because I didn't actually go anywhere. I'm just sitting at my desk. But if you travel any, there'll be a little show my track in Livelox red button at the bottom of this that you can press and review the track, and you can just play through it and make sure it really recorded everything that you did. And in that way, you can test and make sure that the app is functioning properly before you show up at an event. And once you've got that ready, once you know it's ready to go, you're all set. You go to your event, you turn on Livelox, you choose your event and class, then you open up your Stay Awake app, turn it on, go back to Livelox, and when you're ready to go at the start corral, press start recording. Put the phone away without shutting the screen off. It's got to stay on. Put it away somewhere. This is probably an occasion to use that arm strap, the runner's armband, with the screen kind of turned away from you so you can't accidentally brush it or touch it or turn it off. And so that it'll record the entire time you're out there. And then when you get back, you stop it. You go back to your Stay Awake app. You turn that back off. Turn your screen brightness back up and so forth, and everything should be fine. Like I said, it's a pain. It's a kind of an annoying solution. But again, we should only have to do this for a short period of time. Once we get a new version of Livelox, all of these problems will very likely go away. So that's my video here. If you have any problems or questions, you can email me at blake@floridaorienteering.org. Also, if you, on your particular device and operating system, figure out what I could not on the settings, if you find the right magic combination of settings that makes it work on your phone, put in a comment on this video down below with a heading that says, "I'm a total genius. Here's my phone. I have this model phone. I have this operating system, and here's the settings that work for me." And we can kind of share information with people using the system that way. That's it. So good luck, and I'll see you in the woods.